Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live 226. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 19th of the 15th year of our Lord 2023. Yeah, we're moving along. We're nearly halfway through 2023. We're doing it right now in Trinidad and Tobago and in the wider Caribbean region, the CARICOM countries, the Caribbean community. Right now we're in the season where we're writing exams. It's exam season, at least for those students around that ending of high school period. You're writing those CXC exams, those CAPE exams. Good night, Ronnie, Hazel. Good night. It's easy. Universities don't have that problem, but third at its best. I'm not sure what you mean. All right. So yes, it's in exam season and exams are being written right now. The major exam, probably the most important exam in the entire exam season, is CXC mathematics. Now, this is very important because CXC mathematics is required for most jobs. If you need a job, almost surely CXC mathematics would be a requirement for that job. There are currently people in Trinidad and Tobago and probably the wider Caribbean who are waiting to pass math. They have repeated it 3 years, 3 times, and are waiting to pass it finally to get into a job. Third world governance. Oh, it's easy. Universities don't have that problem. Well, Mr. User Numbers, universities don't write the same exam as CXC. And actually, universities do have that problem. I don't know which university you have gone to, but many universities have very well that same problem. Many universities have leaks of exams. It's a problem universities are struggling with more and more in modern times, and they're trying to do different things to do away with that. Now, I wouldn't say it's third world governance that's at the core here. Hey, Ronnie, what's going on? Where the Empress in your name gone? I wouldn't say necessarily it's the third world governance at fault here for that CXC business, because you have to understand what the CXC exam is. The logistics of the CXC exam makes it much more difficult to do that. The CXC exam is one exam written by multiple students across multiple territories in the Caribbean. And then it must all be marked by the same group also. It's logistically difficult. Now, in a time where everything was hard copy, where everything was printed and shipped across, well, that may not have been too hard. You ship across a box of the exams for Trinidad and Tobago, and when they see it, they see it. But now, where technology is at a different point, all it requires is one person to take a picture of the exam and everything gone. Everything gone. Before, it might have required a person steal one and then photocopy it and all of that and all of that and all of that. But if all it requires is a picture and a broadcasted message, that's something that's very, very, very difficult to stop now. Positive Radiation says, would you give a blind lady a house and take it back days later? That happened where? Is that the house that was given the first of the home for everyone, or the equality homes or something in Tobago? I saw they gave out a house to someone. Did they take back the house from the lady? I hope not. I hope not. Please don't tell me that's what went on there. But if she in fear it. But let's go and see what CXC decided to do about their exam. CXC Math Paper 2 scrapped SBAs and Paper 1 to be used. CXC Registrar Wayne Wesley said the CSEC Mathematics Paper 2 will be scrapped following a leak of the paper on Wednesday. He said students will be assessed on Paper 1 and the school-based assessment Paper 3 2. Speaking at a media conference on Friday, he said the leak in the CXC mathematics paper has been traced to a center in Jamaica. He said the education ministry in that country had been notified and steps were being taken to deal with the matter. He said the paper would have been shared throughout the region through social media and messaging apps such as WhatsApp. Wesley said the decision to scrap the paper rather than issuing a new one was taken after considering the mental impact on students, the logistics of administering the exam, exam during the current exam cycle, and the need to have the paper marked in time for matriculation into universities, given that mathematics is one of the compulsory subjects needed by most students. He said while the organization has made great strides in its security protocols, there was still a human element to be dealt with in administering the exams, which could not be legislated against. Or they didn't. So they didn't take it back, but a journalist is attempting to push that. That would be insane for them to take that back. To take that 3 days, no. Days later, no. I don't see how a government does that. I don't see why a government would do that. I just don't see it happening. But with CXC here, Roni says she finds that is so unfair. But what is the other alternative? I understand why it could be unfair, you know. I understand that totally. And listen, consider this. I teach privately. I teach private tuition. To let you in on some of the costing, private tuition by and large is $150 an hour for a 2-hour session. So it's $300 per session. There are some people who would have paid for many sessions of private tuition in preparation for that paper 2 exam. That is now pointless. So I understand what you're saying in terms of it's unfair. I kind of agree. But the thing is, any decision made in something like this is going to be unfair. If you just allowed the paper to stand, you did nothing about it, then there would be some students inside of that exam who would be getting an unfair advantage in the exam. And bear in mind now, many people, this is still debatable. No one really knows because CXC is just so opaque of an organization. We just don't know for sure. But many people say that CXC may be marking on a curve. And if you don't understand what marking on a curve means, it's that your grades are dependent on the grades of other people. So it's like, okay, a percentage of people get 1s, a percentage of people get 2s, a percentage of people get 3s, etc., etc., etc. So if you now have an unfair group who would have had early access to the exam, they would now be filling up that percentage at the highest level, the 1s, and they would push down people to lower grades. If CXC does mark on a curve, push down people to lower grades that would have studied legitimately for the exam. Why are they doing SBA for maths? Since when that started? A while now, probably easily 10 years. A good while now they started doing SBA for maths to attempt to get some coursework in there. And I could understand you see, SBAs, this is an example that you could see where it's difficult for large organizations like governments, like CXC, etc., etc., to make clear and legitimate changes, because the ideas for SBAs and continuous assessments and internal assessments and all of that is a sensible idea. The idea behind these SBAs and stuff is that, okay, many people for many years have complained repeatedly about the whole exam technique. This is a test of your regurgitation skills. It's a test of memorization. It's not a test of really if people are learning. So many people have said that if you really want to test how people are learning, you need some kind of continuous assessment to check how they do while they are in class. Now, how do you do that? Now, if it's something like homeschooling, if you are involved in mindful education, if you are in one of our learning pods, continuous assessment is done on a daily, because it's small, intimate classes where the tutors get to know every student. They could tell you where the students are at. They could give you rundowns on how the student learns and all of that. A little shameless plug there for mindful education. But in a massive school system, they have to make a policy to do this. And when they make a policy to do this, they're saying, okay, well, the policy we're going to do is we must have assessments throughout the term. And there's where the SBAs come in. And now they have to make up math SBAs to put in there to get that continuous assessment. So I understand why I say I really think SBAs and projects should be pushed more than exams. I understand why you would say that. And I understand why most people would say that. But there's an unfair aspect to SBAs and projects also. Let's compare two students. If a student comes from a less privileged home in terms of financial resources and all of that, less privileged home, but they are very sharp, they are intelligent. Naturally, their general intelligence is pretty high. They're sharp at picking up stuff. And compared to a student who comes from a very privileged home, who may be a little slower, and you give both of them an exam to do, who do you think would ace the exam? Well, very likely the student who is sharp but came from an underprivileged home. But then, if you gave them continuous assessments and projects to do, SBAs and projects constantly, where they have to print, they have to go on the internet, they have to copy and paste, they have to have access to technology, they have to have access to devices, etc., etc., who do you think would do better in that case? And in that case, if you make a school system that depends much more heavily on SBAs and projects, you may end up inadvertently testing wealth instead of testing intelligence. I could tell you the wealthier students do better in SBAs by default. A wealthy student is going to come to Mindful Education or the Student Hub and ask if we have a tutor to sit down with their student and go through the SBAs every day for a week. They will hire a private tutor to sit with that child and do the SBAs and do the projects. That's what wealth will do in that case. What's going to happen to the lesser privileged students? So that's what I'm saying. When we're talking about ideas about how to fix things, or you have to think about the second and third order consequences and actions of those ideas that we have. Okay, what's going to happen when we do it? And then what? And then what? And then what? So don't get me wrong, I agree that ultimately the best way to test education, to test learning, is to test basically daily. You have to look at the student constantly, see how they are reacting to the information that they are being presented with. I agree. However, in a massive public education system that is so generalized as ours is, where there are 30 to 40 students per class, to attempt to do continuous assessments there, in fact you're just going to do generalized continuous assessments. I think everyone in the chat here has done CXC already. If you have, you know what SBAs are like. You know what SBAs are like. SBAs don't really test your intelligence on the subject. So as much as I could agree and understand where you are coming from, RL, I don't like that idea either. I don't like that idea either. I like exams, you know. Now, I think we could have better exams. I think we could have more exams. I think we could have more regular exams. But I don't mind the idea of exams. In fact, I like the kind of stress it gives on the students. I am not one of those who is of the view that students should not feel stress from exams. No, feel that stress, bro. That's life. That stress you're feeling there, that's life, bro. That's how it goes. Life is stressful. All the time in life, you're going to have things that you have to look forward to that are going to have the pressure of performance on you. That's the nature of life. You will have that pressure of performance. Best you get accustomed to it from now. I prefer project and presentation. I think project and presentation has its place, but I like the idea of exams. I like it. Every time I see these school fight videos, the large student body becomes very apparent. I like exams. I kind of like the idea of exams. Teach you that movement under that behavior under pressure. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Maybe we could get some more exams. Maybe like if we want to legitimately test a student how they're doing, maybe you have much more exams instead of one final exam over the entire thing. But I don't dislike exams in that way. Yes, those schools are overcrowded, Kilvon. That is without a doubt. The schools are overcrowded, and we no longer live in a society where We no longer live in a society where everyone subscribes to so similar cultures that it makes that overcrowded school easy to still treat with. It doesn't make it easy to treat with. If you go to an overcrowded school and the culture of that school is a strange one to you, that you're in problems. So that's why I tell parents, you have to be very careful about where you're sending your child. You have to be very careful. The school system is not the same as it once was. The way things going, we may see less exams. Maybe. But many small quizzes. That's what I agree with their curve on. Alright. Something that I thought I just kind of had to touch on. A teacher teaching different demographics at the same time is dangerous. I could understand that. Something that I thought I had to touch on because I was watching this story as it developed. The police killing of Kise Lendo. Kise is innocent. This is the cry of a Karanaj family that is seeking answers following the police killing on Tuesday of Kise Lendo. Lendo, 37, was killed in Shogunas by CID officers who were following up on reports of a robbery at a grocery on Freedom Street Extension Enterprise at around 6:15 p.m. Lendo was in the company of another unidentified man who was also shot and killed by police. In tears, Lendo's mother, Erlene Lendo, made an emotional plea in a Facebook post yesterday that garnered thousands of views. What is becoming of our police service in this country? Who are we supposed to protect and serve? The police are killing our children, and what I'm going through now, a lot of parents went through. If my child was a criminal, I would accept it. My child was walking the right way. He was not a robber. He lost his job during the COVID, so he went to work as a mechanic and to learn the trade at the same time. Only God could judge, but I forgive the police officers. Listen. Reading that story, that sounds like a true nightmare to me. Like, okay, regularly you hear people mocking the mothers and the family that says he was a good boy, he never do nothing and all of that. You regularly hear the mockery of that. But what happens when that is true? What happens when and if that is true? If, and many people are holding this view, and the shooting of this young man in Enterprise really doesn't line up. The robbery at the supermarket was early in the morning. He was in Enterprise late in the evening. He was on camera in Karanaj all throughout the day. So he doesn't fit the description of the guys who were robbing the grocery. This is a sizable guy of African descent. And the guys that robbed the grocery seemed like some slim guys, and their voices seemed a bit Southeast Asian to me. But the police ran in and killed him. And then they released a statement that he was a robber. He was the bandit and he shot at the police first. What do you do in a situation like that? Can you imagine losing a family member and then having to deal with them, with their name being made a mockery of and tarnished across the nation? In a corrupt police system with no accountability, nothing will happen. Bro, I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine where my mind would be if that happens to a family member of mine. And this is why I constantly say, I regularly say this, constantly I talk about this. The judicial system, the main focus of the judicial system is to make sure you do not punish innocent people. Punishing innocent people is one of the best ways to mash up your entire justice system. Because I could tell you, if you're a family member of an innocent person and they are hurting the system, the idea of upholding the law loses appeal to you. If you are an upholder of the law your entire life and you are still punished by it, the idea that I should continue living by the law no longer seems alluring to me. If police officers murder a relative of mine and then lie about it, what is my heart going to be like towards the police? that situation is why I think twice about the Bukele method. TTPS would abuse it badly. Yes, I could see that. But bear in mind, the Bukele method wasn't going out and killing out the cartels. They weren't going in a gunfight with the cartels. They arrested them, built a massive prison, and that's where they are placing them. Cardell Josie Edwards says the only person that made the police officers held accountable was forced out of the commissioner. And listen, that's not something that the police want. The police don't want that. You do not want a group of frustrated, extremely angry people out there facing you. I looked also, there was the shooting, a home invasion happened in West Moorings. And listen, when I looked at that whole home invasion and how it all went down, some things kind of seemed like it stood out to me a bit. It stood out to me a bit. Man shot in Laventille as police probe West Moorings robbery. Police following up on a home invasion at a house in West Moorings shot a man in Laventille after a reported shootout on Wednesday night. Now, bear in mind, when the information for this home invasion first went out, there was a name listed about who was the victim of this home invasion. The name listed was a very connected person. Their surname showed that they were very connected on one side, and their parentage showed that they were connected to probably the most powerful business family in Trinidad and Tobago. Very connected person. So, the fact that a home invasion and a very connected person precipitated this kind of action kind of raises alarms to me, because there have been other home invasions, and yes, the police have jumped into action, but this, it seems a bit more agitated, the police action. I don't know for sure, but it does seem a bit more agitated, because a home invasion happened in West Moorings and the police reached to lock down Dan Kelly the same night. When they invade the homes in Kunupie and Pinal and Separia and Shaguanas and Kuva and Lanch Park, do we get that same kind of reaction? I hope the day come when Trinidadians really get exposed to the crime world works in Trinidad. I may hope so too. Now, if you look at even this footage where the police said they shot a man in Laventille after a shootout, listen, all of these areas now have cameras. Even if the government and the police camera is not working, them cameras working. They have the police on camera, and the police account isn't exactly how it went. Police said officers of the Port of Spain Gang Intelligence Unit went to an unnamed road off gang Dan Kelly at around 10:22 p.m. to question several people in the area. Police claimed they were shot at by people in a car. Officers returned fire, hitting one man in his back. Police intercepted the car nearby and took the wounded man to the hospital, where he was listed as being in a stable condition. 2 men and a woman were arrested. Police said they are expected to be charged for shooting offenses in the area. They said a pistol was found in the car and seized. Newsday visited the area where the shooting happened on Thursday morning and spoke with one man who disagreed with the official account given by the police, claiming the officers were not shot at. All they did in the car was slow down, and the officers shot at them. They also didn't identify themselves as police. Those men wearing plainclothes with a bulletproof vest with the word police on the front. That could be anyone. Here, and when you look at the footage, the man is correct. A darkened vehicle drives around the corner and stumbles upon the police in plainclothes standing there. Upon slowing down, the police spins around, turns towards them. According to the view of the camera, and the camera is relatively high quality, there were no shots fired out the car. The police didn't even duck to run or hide from shots being fired. He spun around and began laying down shots at the car immediately. Nathan, do you really think Trinidadians care when police kill someone, especially in those areas? Well, I don't know how many Trinidadians care, but I'm sure some do. And here's the problem. As we saw just now with the Kisse guy from Carnage, it is possible that other people could get caught up in that too. You don't have to care now, but it's possible your family member could be one, just happened to be in the wrong place, and the police acting like an illegal gang murders them too. So you don't have to care about it now, but you should, because it would affect you eventually. That's how it goes. And the problem with this is when the police act like a gang, they would be treated like a gang. That's the problem, because that same shooting in Dan Kelly, where they shot the man in his back, if you look at the video after that, the police are standing there, and then suddenly you just hear gunshots erupt from in the darkness. Those police are making their lives more dangerous, because you are giving those guys nothing to lose, because they know if the police catch me, they're going to kill me. So it's a kill or be killed. I can assure you, those police who are acting like that dare not walk through any of those alleys in Laventille without hundreds or, well, dozens of police following them, because they know they are at risk. And they are at risk because they are living a gang life. You are taking lives in a gang war. So now you have to protect your life like it's a gang war. That's not where the police are supposed to be at. The police are not supposed to be in the gang war free. That's not where it's supposed to be. Greetings, sir. Greetings. Now, someone asked how did they know where to get the safe? Well, in the home invasion, they have arrested the housekeeper, alleging that the housekeeper may have been a case of an inside job. So, you know, they did actually hold that housekeeper. The housekeeper didn't get away with it. Well, I don't know if she's involved, but they have held her for some questions, and we'll see how that all turns out. But I mean, it seems a bit strange. Some guys turn up at the gate of a gated community, and the housekeeper lets them in, and they go in and find the location of the safe inside of the... something seems a bit strange, but I guess the police will deal with that matter. As for the camera situation, though, it wasn't in Lange Park. That was the other one. There was a break-in Lange Park. And if you notice, sir, and this is where things are starting to get drastic. Those home invasion boys aren't going for Tanti Merle and neighbor Harry and neighbor Lal and those regular guys anymore. They're going for Lange Park and West Moorings and Goodwood. They're upping their risk taking. So many people who may sit in Trinidad and think they are above the free, I don't have that to worry about. You know, the Prime Minister talking about somebody jumped through his window in Goodwood 20 years ago and he jumped at him with his hands for his neck. Well, Prime Minister, it seems like those areas in Goodwood are now under attack again. So there has been no response at all from the government. We'll see. Lodge Medial queries government on $80 million camera probe. Listen, when I'm reading this, I applied for police a decade ago. They reject me and hire my friends who didn't even finish school. Bro, says collateral damage perhaps according to the late Patrick Manning. This camera situation in Trinidad and Tobago, something seems very, very strange about this whole camera situation. It could nearly seem like someone is purposefully out there ensuring that Trinidad and Tobago does not have proper camera coverage. Listen to this. Opposition Senator Jayanti Lachmedial has called for answers pertaining to the investigation into some $80 million for CCTV cameras. She raised the issue in the debate of the Finance Appropriation Bill. Lachmedial noted that $76 million was being asked for as supplementation for the Strategic Services Agency. So the government has come to Parliament to ask for $76 million more for cameras. They're asking for $76 million more for cameras. All right. She noted that in November 2020, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley made an announcement that $80 million had been spent to acquire cameras. So, okay, $80 million was spent in 2020. What's the $76 million for now? She said in 2018, the PNM government made a decision to discontinue a contract which was previously held by TSTT for CCTV. This is where things are starting to look strange to me. Maintaining a high-tech camera system is expensive, though, bro. That's not the problem, RL. The problem isn't the price of maintenance. The problem is answering questions. Why would the PNM do away with the old TSTT contract in 2018 without getting a good replacement for it? We are in 2023 and we are yet to get a good replacement for it. I remember when the People's Partnership came into governance, and they cancelled some of our offshore patrol vessels that we were supposed to get to, keep our borders secure. The PNM government threw out some allegations out there that the UNC must be in cahoots with some of the traffickers and all of that because they want them to be able to sneak in our borders. Now that the PNM government is in power, and it could seem like they are purposefully stymieing the CCTV camera system since 2018. Using the kind of logic, using the kind of assumptions that the PNM gave for the UNC and the OPV, what are the assumptions that we are supposed to have against the PNM for them handicapping our CCTV system? Blessed night, Shy Guy. Lachmedial said the acquisition of CCTV cameras has been plagued with questions and issues. She said when they went out to tender, the SSA head wrote and said there was a compromise in the tender and it was scrapped. Okay, so again, longer delay on CCTV. It took the government 2 years before anything else was done, she said. Okay, 2 more years without CCTV. Lachmedial said a request for proposal went out, but the process was scrapped again in January 2021. Okay, why the delay again? Brandon Shadia says cost. Listen. If you are someone who is more in good night, Fazal. If you are someone who is more in tune with the present PNM government, I could understand you trying to excuse it with cost. But let's be real. We live in Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM government spent $200,000 on social media for a crime symposium, where they came up with the conclusion that they are going to ban a rifle that is already banned in the country. So when you talk about the cost and we don't have enough money, I call the refuse of cows, of male cows. I call that the refuse of male cows. That's what I'll call that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. You cancel the TSTT contract. You bid, you cancel the bid. You bid again, you cancel the bid again. What's going on? They spent 800,000 on signage for this symposium. Exactly. Don't give me no mama guy talk about like if this country, you know, we are so budget conscious in this country, you know, we look at the prices. We look at the prices really seriously. Come on, don't mama guy me like that, man. Don't gaslight me, Sona, please. Don't try to gaslight me like that. It's not true. It really is not true. And I have always thought about this. You look at the crime in Trinidad and Tobago, CCTV camera footage would solve and not solve, but result in the capture of probably upwards of half of the crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. All the home invasions that happen south of the Caroni are going to be solved, because all those boys, when they are caught, are always from the east-west corridor. So when they do a home invasion in south, they have to hit the highway. They murdered someone on St. Mary's Junction, Freeport, a week or so back. There are cameras on St. Mary's Junction. That's one of the busiest junctions in Central. They murdered the man during peak time. How do you escape from the busiest junction in Freeport during peak time and no one could know where you went? How? Mr. Face the nature of Trinidad's roads. You cannot reach from south to the north without touching the highway. You said except to cross it. That's touching the highway. That's touching the highway. So, what do you mean how? What do you mean how? What do I mean how? How is that? It's one word with 3 letters. I thought the definition for how was understandable. How? How can that happen? How can it happen that the St. Mary's police station is, the Freeport police station is right here, the St. Mary's Junction is right here, a murder happens there, there's a light on the St. Mary's Junction in the middle with cameras facing in all directions, and somehow a murder happens there. No one knows where the men went in peak hour traffic from the busiest junction in Freeport, with a police station 400 meters away, probably 800 meters away. Come on, man. And then our government is telling us that, well, the cameras aren't working, and you know, we're really trying to solve this issue. We're really trying to solve this camera issue, and they cannot solve it since they cancelled the contract with TSTT in 2018. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. You cannot put up cameras in the country for 6 years. You are unable to do that. Listen, the reputed community leader in Beetham, when the police went and killed his dog, he had 360 camera coverage of his entire compound. How is it that the community leaders are more competent at getting surveillance in and around their communities than the government is around the country? I could assure you, if the police make a slip up in St. Paul Street, I sure it have cameras to catch them. How it is community leaders have a better surveillance system I don't blame the police on this, than the state. It doesn't make sense. When the scrap metal guys had the trucks dump sand on the highway to protest, nobody was ever caught. Very good point. Very, very, very good point. Well, that's democracy for you, you said. No, that's not democracy. That's not democracy. Captain Django says cameras don't unmask persons. Plenty crimes are caught on videos and they can't be solved. Listen, Captain Django, you are not understanding what I'm saying. You are not understanding what I'm saying. I am not talking about solving crime after you see the guy's face on the camera. I am talking about a murder happens and the perpetrators are driving away and there are cameras on every corner and the police are unable to know where they went. That's what I'm talking about. The guys that were killed, well, they aren't working anymore, Papa Boy. The guys that were killed in a home invasion in Miaro, 4 men were killed. All 4 of them were from Beetham, was it? Beetham or Diego Martin? That was about 2 months back in Mayaro. Police killed 4 guys in a home invasion. The reason they could feel secure that I could do a crime in South and I'm living in the West is because they know the cameras don't work. They know the police can't do anything with the cameras. Too much work for the police to do and too little pay. What? What are you talking about? What is too much work for the police to do? CCTV along with vehicle registration databases and license plate standard allow better tracking easily. I sure people's cell phone would capture more vids and put on social media in no time at all. Yes, it would. It would. I think those kind of drive-by gangland shootings that we have in Trinidad, I think those things could be stopped. The cameras could stop that. If fellas know, when I put on a drive-by, within 5 minutes, police are going to be on my exact location because they are going to look at the camera system. There is 24 monitoring on the CCTV camera system. They are going to catch me. If they know that, those crimes are not going to be committed as regularly. Let anyone touch and elite around any CCTV and see if it's working. Very good point. Very, very good point. Remember, Minister's son lost his phone, and all of a sudden we recognize that the police can track phones. I remember multiple people losing their phones and going to the police, and the police telling them, well, we can't track phones, you know. We can't do that, you know. Sorry, we can't do that, you know. Or persons tracking the phones and showing the police, look where my phone is, and the police, well, sorry, we can't do anything about that right now, you know. We don't have any vehicles. So, well, thanks for giving us the information. We'll do an investigation on it. Well, a minister's son lost his phone, and he recognized, wait, now they could track and find phones in an instant. Unless the camera systems resemble those of Israel, UK, etc., crime would be solvable. Again, Captain Django. Again, Captain Django. Again, Captain Django. You could have VGA cameras. Once they could identify a vehicle, they could tell you which direction the vehicle is headed in. They could tell you which road the vehicle is on. You don't have to get facial ID on the people. You don't have to have a facial ID computer working through your camera. Come on, we're not talking 4K 60 FPS cameras out there. It's not what is needed necessarily. Their work is to give tickets. Yeah, we know that. We know that. When I was listening to the Commissioner of Police talk about how her goals are failing, the goals that she has set out for herself, they're failing. She's not going to be able to meet her goals of decreasing the murders and all of that. She admitted as much. When I was looking at that, it kind of was stark to me that she was calling all these percentages that they were unable to increase, but yet they were boasting about the amount of tickets they were able to give. Yeah, they were able to give so many tickets. Bottoming is the current system isn't there to protect bottom line, I presume, updated every year. All right. Now, we're jumping over from that to the court case. The court case that the government lost in the Privy Council. Government loses at Privy Council. People have a right to vote. The people of Trinidad and Tobago have a right to vote. This was the loud and clear message from the Privy Council law lords who delivered judgment against the government's decision to postpone the local government elections and extend the life of councils for 1 year. Former Attorney General Anand Ram Logan secured victory at the Privy Council after being defeated at Trinidad and Tobago's High Court and Court of Appeal after he challenged on behalf of his client Ravi Bal Gobind Maharaj the extension of local government officials' tenure from December 2nd, 2022 for 1 year following the proclamation of sections of the Miscellaneous Provisions Act. All right. Now, this one, this one, to me, is interesting. This ruling just cemented the opposition's view of keeping the Privy Council as our highest court. This ruling just did that. Our High Court in Trinidad and Tobago ruled in favor of the state. Our appeal court in Trinidad and Tobago ruled in favor of the state. The Privy Council struck it down. You're not going to convince the UNC to move away from the Privy Council anytime soon. The Venom, I thought TNT aim was to go all out to solve crime, but I digress. I don't know what you're talking about there. No way the opposition is going to want to move away from the Privy Council now that it has seen that rulings that were upheld in favor of the state by the local courts were struck down by the Privy Council. That's all the proof they need. That's all the proof they need. And the Attorney General had a bit of a response to this. Election call is the PM's. Government loses at Privy Council. Armour working fast and hard to advise Cabinet. Attorney General Reginald Armour Senior Counsel yesterday sought to put the best possible spin on government's 3-2 defeat at the Privy Council on the issue of the postponement of local government elections. Speaking at a news conference at his Port of Spain office, called to address the Privy Council judgment, which was delivered 7 hours earlier, Armour could not say what the government's next move would be in light of the ruling, since he was giving it active consideration. Now, Armour went on to really try and spin this ruling. He reiterated over and over and over and over that the appeal court in Trinidad ruled unanimously in their favor. The appeal court in Trinidad ruled unanimously in our favor and the appeal. But that's really and truly irrelevant in the nature of how the justice system works. That kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The ruling is up to the Privy Council. Their ruling has been thrown out. Fazal says, let them bring Sharia law used in Muslim countries. Half of them won't survive it. I don't think any Trini wants Sharia in Trinidad. It's not going to work. Told that the decisions of the appeal court were irrelevant, given that the Privy Council is this country's final court, the Attorney General said the Court of Appeal's decision was not irrelevant and were referred to by the Privy Council. But I think the Attorney General is attempting to be a little slippery here. I think he's attempting to be a little slippery here with his wording. He is saying that the Privy Council referred to the appeal court ruling. Yes, of course they referred to the appeals court ruling because they struck it down. If you have to strike down a ruling, you have to refer to the ruling you're striking down. Now, in the Attorney General's conclusion of this matter, he was trying to highlight that the main problem the Privy Council had was just the wording of the law. It wasn't that the Privy Council said we broke any law or we were breaking laws. No mischievous. Anticipating that the Privy Council decision would be used to make political capital at the government's expense, the Attorney General reiterated it bears emphasis that nothing in the way of those amendments and nothing in the decision of the Privy Council can support any argument that this government, by these amendments, was seeking to disenfranchise the rights of the citizens of this country to vote their elected representatives into office. But I disagree. The Attorney General is attempting to say that the Privy Council did not say that we were attempting to bypass people's right to vote. But that kind of was exactly what the Privy Council said. Now, the Attorney General is I understand what he's saying, because what the Privy Council highlighted was the fact that the language of the amendment never made it clear that they were going to keep the incumbents in place. That's the main point of the Privy Council. The language of the government's law, the language that they wrote into law, did not directly and explicitly say that the incumbents would get another year in office. That was not said. And that's the main problem the Privy Council had. Now, the Attorney General is using that to say that the Privy Council only had a language issue with the government's law, and it wasn't that they were saying the government were attempting to disenfranchise the voters. But that kind of is what the Privy Council was also saying. The ruling, as I always say, the Privy Council, you could pull up their rulings and read it right there. The ruling is right there. I am reading this directly out of the Privy Council's ruling. While the board was of the view, read on its own, yada yada yada, the election of representatives for a fixed or maximum period is the foundation on which a democratic society is built. It is inimical to a representative democracy that the representatives are chosen by anyone other than the electorate. In other words, in order for this to be a democracy, the electorate must vote for the leaders. In order for this to be a democracy, the electorate, the voters, must choose the leaders. This is what they said. It is not for Parliament, still less the government, to choose the representative. However, if the effect of the relevant amendments was to apply to incumbent representatives, the effect would be that the government, rather than the electorate, had chosen those representatives for another year. And that is exactly disenfranchising the voters. I voted for this man for 3 years, and you in Parliament are going to take that and put him in for another year, while I, as the voter, I am supposed to be the one that selects that. Now, there's a minority ruling here. The minority agreed with the state. And let me read this, and I'll tell you why I am glad the majority ruling stood, because I find this minority ruling scary. The minority's interpretation does not truly have retrospective effect. So the question here is whether this law has retrospective effect. So, okay, now the local government representatives could be in place for 4 years. Okay, does that have effect to the incumbents, to the people in the past? Does it have retrospective effect? The people who agreed with the government, the law lords who agreed with the government, they're saying that it's not that it has retrospective effect, because the effect of the incumbents' election was to put them in office for a period specified in the law, which, like any other provision, was liable to be lengthened or shortened by Parliament. I don't know if you all get what those dissenting voices are saying, but I find it scary. They're saying that, okay, the MCA law, the Municipal Corporation Act, that law that brought about the local government bodies, when we vote for people based on that law. So the ability to vote for local government representatives is given to us from that law. That law created that ability for us to vote for local government representatives. What the dissenting voices are saying is that once you vote for those local government representatives, you're voting basically for the law. And the government, the Parliament, has the legal authority to change that law. Personally, I find that interpretation extremely scary, because that seems to suggest that, okay, in Trinidad and Tobago we have a law that says we vote in a prime minister for 5 years, he stays for 5 years, and then we get another election. Okay, grant. What you're saying is we can vote in a prime minister expecting him to stay there for 5 years. And then on the 5th year, like Haiti does regularly, the prime minister ups and decides, okay, I want to extend my term. And he goes and extends his term, and that's legal because he changed the law, and we voted for him based on the law, and now that he changed the law, he is now fitting into the law. To me, that's some scary stuff. That sounds like the legal precedence of an authoritarian country. That, okay, the leader, you get to vote, yes, you get to vote, but after you vote, the leaders could change the law that you voted for. I think that's insane. If you went to people with a law that says, okay, you're voting for these people for 3 years, you can't change the law after the people voted for them for 3 years. You can't change that law midway. After the 3 years have expired, then You could say the new people coming in, we want them to last for 4 years. So now when I vote for this new person I know, I'm voting for this person for 4 years. You want that the electorate is knowledgeable about what they're voting people in for. That's it to me. I think whatever you vote someone in for, they should remain there for that purpose. That purpose shouldn't be able to be changed midway through the vote. That sounds insane to me. That sounds really insane. Now, the majority decision that agreed with the appeal and struck down the government's decisions, they came up with even another reason why this didn't make sense. Listen to this. The need for clarity also arises because of the retrospective effect of the amendments. If interpreted as applying to incumbents, not only would it directly interfere with and undermine the electorate's decision to elect them for a term of 3 years. Now, bear in mind, people. Our Attorney General said that the law lords, the Privy Council, did not say the government was disenfranchising people's right to vote. Our Attorney General just said that, right? Y'all were following me when I just read that. Now, listen to this quote and tell me what this means. The need for clarity arises because of the retrospective, yada yada yada, if interpreted, yes. Not only will it directly interfere with and undermine the electorate's decision to elect them for a term of 3 years. What does undermine mean? Isn't the Privy Council saying here that what the government attempted to do was interfere with and undermine the electorate's decision? Now, the Attorney General, in his speech there, he said, please go and read the ruling. Okay, I'm reading the ruling here. This is directly coming out of the ruling here. In the ruling, they said, you all were attempting to interfere with and undermine the electorate's decision. Claude Hughes, Tobago night is Wednesday. We talk all Tobago issues on a Wednesday. All Tobago issues on a Wednesday. I'm not sure what you're talking about that happened in Tobago. What specifically is that you're talking about? Kevon, that's the thing. How hard would it have been to do that? How hard would it have been to do that? And it makes me wonder, what was the purpose? Why did you need that extra year? What did you do with the extra year that you so needed it? Now, the reality is this ruling is just kind of for precedent. This ruling is a nonsense ruling in terms of what its effect is on the country. The government wanted an extra year and they have already gotten the extra year. What are you going to do? Reverse time and force the election to have been called last year, November or something? No, you cannot do that. They already got the year. This is similar, and I was speaking about this, was it last night I was saying this? This is similar to what we saw happening in the United States during the pandemic, where they were locking down people. They were doing some of the vaccine mandate laws in the United States. Some of those laws were pushed forward knowing that they were unconstitutional and that the Supreme Court would knock them down. But by the time they reached the Supreme Court, they already got the purpose that they were there for. And similarly in Trinidad, they already got the year. Yeah, they could look bad. Yeah, the opposition could use this for mileage. Yeah, people could say what they want, but they already got the year. There's nothing that can be done to undo that. The year is gone. However, listen to this. So it's not only that it undermines the electorate's decision to elect them, but incumbents would be obliged to serve a further period of 1 year and could resign only on payment of a financial penalty. That's actually a good point. The elected officials inside of the local government, they were elected. This, as it were, they signed a contract on a job for 3 years. You just went and extended their contract by a year without their permission. You forced them to work. Yes, it may help them in terms of politics, positive radiation. But we are talking about this in terms of legal precedent. Should the government be able to, okay, you are expected to work for 3 years. Should the government be able to, on a snap of a finger, be able to just extend that by a year, and now you are forced to work for an extra year? And because of that, you cannot resign without being penalized. Yeah, man, Fazal, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Blessed night to you too. So, well, we already gave them the power to govern us. We gave them limited power to govern certain aspects of the country. We didn't give them the ultimate power to just govern over us. Nathan, you are the same guy who discredits laws. Yes, I regularly do. Why didn't the opposition councillors all resign their position if they disagreed? Because that wouldn't make sense now, would it? Why would they do that? Like, why would they do that? For what purpose? How would that benefit them? They didn't want to resign. They wanted elections called. You understand? Yeah, they could disagree, but they don't want to lose their post. They're demanding that the government call elections. Resigning isn't going to help that happen. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Now, there was a statement at the end of what the Attorney General said that I find just... It's the chef's kiss. It's the chef's kiss there. Asked to respond to political criticisms that the extension of the life of the local government bodies came like a thief in the night, given the fact that the government did not state at any time during the debate on the local government amendment bill in the parliament that its passage and proclamation would result in the extension of the life of the current local government bodies by 1 year. So that's another part of it. But Mr. No one is arguing that they didn't want the position. If you go and ask the councillors, did you want the position? Of course they're going to say yes. They're not arguing that they did not want the position. They're saying that by the PNM extending for a year, they extended the incumbents in place, and they believe that if they call that local government election last year, maybe the UNC would have been able to get in power there. They would have been able to kick out some of those incumbents. So now, by extending it for a year, you have extended the life of those incumbents beyond where it would have lasted if everything was left to be fair. I don't know what their salaries curve on. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is an interesting part. If the government always intended that this law be pertaining to the incumbents too, why didn't they highlight this while they were debating it? They only brought this out when they proclaimed the law. And that does seem sneaky. Like, okay, you may have your PNM card, but be honest, that's some sneaky behavior. That kind of reminds me of some Section 34 business. Was it Section 34? The whole business with the partnership and their two financiers, where they proclaimed a little piece of a law in the middle of the night on Independence Day, and their partners attempted to use the law to escape charges and blah, 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 blah. That kind of reminds me of that kind of action. How you mean you proclaim this, and after you proclaim it, all of a sudden we find out what it does? But you were talking about the law all the time. Why didn't you talk about this piece? Why did you purposefully leave the electorate in ignorance? All right, let's see what the Attorney General had to say. The Attorney General said, I don't recall reading that in the judgment. Told that it was a political criticism, he said, well, I am not here to address political criticisms. I am a lawyer. Listen, I read this line, and Mr. Armour lost nearly all the points I had in my book for him. I don't know how many points he had in my book, but he lost all of them. This is such a dishonest answer. I am a lawyer. Mr. Armour Your position is as Attorney General, appointed by the Prime Minister of this country. That's a political position. You are a politician. Yes, you are also a lawyer, but you are a politician, and you are a PNM politician in the ruling government. To say that I am not going to answer political questions because I am a lawyer seems very dishonest. That seems like a really snaky thing to do. And this question is kind of the crux of this. Okay, you all are saying that you all didn't mean this thing as deception. Okay, you all didn't mean it as deception. So explain to me, why didn't you announce that this was the intention before it was proclaimed? And when that question is asked, you say, well, I'm not here to answer political criticisms. What? 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 More batting in the crease, he have a life after politics. Okay, he has a life after politics, but he is still a politician. How could you be talking about I am a lawyer when you are a politician? If you just wanted to be a lawyer, Mr. Armour, then you could have stayed as the Prime Minister's lawyer, as the Prime Minister's personal lawyer, and allow someone else to get the Attorney General portfolio, and you could consult on all of those things, and you would just be a lawyer. But if you put your hat in the political ring, you can't then expect to be treated as anything besides a politician. You're the government's chief lawyer, the cabinet is the PM and the AG and others. Correct. That's a very good point, Clavon. In Trinidad and Tobago, the political system that is the government, required to have a government in Trinidad, you need a Prime Minister and Attorney General. You are one of the two prerequisite people to have the main political system in the country. And now you're attempting to give us the refuse of male cow's answer that you're a lawyer. So somehow you don't have answers for the political considerations and criticisms. That doesn't make sense. And it's not a sensible answer. And to me, here's the thing. He doesn't want to answer that question because it makes the government look bad, obviously. But I think his not answering the question is just as bad enough. That's bad enough. The journalist who asked him that question, they got an answer enough from him. This is answer enough. Our Attorney General, the chief legal officer of our country, is letting us know that when he makes political decisions, because he makes political decisions, he will not answer the criticisms that are levied against his political decisions because he's a lawyer. So his political decisions are above criticism because he's a lawyer. All right. Sure, Mr. Armour. Sure. Sure. All right, people. All right. That's all I have for now. Any further comments or questions inside of the live? President, PM, AG, Chief Justice, that's the pecking order. No, Mr. Humface. No. That's funny. That's funny. That's real funny, Mr. Humface. PM, AG, Chief Justice, President. That's the pecking order. The president does not have a lot of power in Trinidad and Tobago. There was a very funny line inside of the Privy Council's ruling. Let me see if I could pull up that. Line. All right, here it is. This is out. This is out from the Privy Council. Let's see if we get that. President. Good. Let me read this line from the Privy Council's ruling. I don't know that positive edition. I don't know that. Here's this. The board considered that a powerful indication that the amendments were not intended to apply to incumbents is that the president, listen to this, the president, and in brackets, this is the Privy Council, the highest court of Trinidad and Tobago. In brackets, next to the president, they have, which in reality means the government. You know, in Trinidad here, we are intoxicated with the illusion that our president is an independent position. You know, our president is an independent office out there. You know, the independent office of the president. The president, in brackets, which in reality means the government, was empowered to bring these amendments into effect on a date specified in the proclamation. So what the Privy Council law lords were saying here is that this piece of legislation was so vague and general in terms of whether it referred to the incumbents, but yet it was so specific, it specified which date the president should proclaim it on. So if the president should proclaim it on a specific date and you had that in the law, how could you not specify about incumbents in the law? Personally, I think they purposefully didn't specify about incumbents and they purposefully wanted it to just be understood because they wanted to sneak it in. That's my opinion. My opinion. If applicable to incumbents, Parliament would have conferred on the government power to decide whether or not the terms of office of elected representatives should be extended by a year. But I just found it, I just wanted to go back to that line in the Privy Council's ruling because I found it very funny that the Privy Council, the highest court of appeal in our land, I don't know, Ronnie. I'm not keeping up with the basketball at this very moment. I find it very funny that the Privy Council referred to the president as basically the government. In reality, that's the government. Yes, the president is the government. The president, you know, I think in Trinidad and Tobago we could do away with the faking and just put the president as a portfolio in the government. So you see, like how you have a prime minister, attorney general, a minister of finance, you have a president. The president is part of the government too. Yeah, we just have a president there too. Isn't the president selected by the electoral college? Who really has the power? Who really has the power is the government, because the government has the most people in the electoral college. It's kind of by default. The way how you choose a government is you have the majority of the electoral college, and the way how you choose a president is you have the majority of the electoral college. So the same way you choose a government is the same way you choose a president. So the same people that choose the government are the same people that choose the president. Yes, that is the language. Cause to be proclaimed on the advice of the PM. Mindful Education has a law department. Yes. Not officially yet, but if we have enough demand, we will open it. We'll get someone of the lawyers to come in and do that. Not the Commissioner of Police. Well, the Commissioner of Police is one step removed. The Commissioner of Police is one step removed from that. But as I was saying, if we now call the president, as they really are, a position in the government, then we'd say clearly that the Commissioner of Police is chosen by the government. Says when Patrick Manning wanted to change the governance to executive president, he was called dictator. Because executive president would get more power. I understand why they would call him dictator, even though I may be of the view that I would have to see what would be the provisions for the executive president. I can't remember what were the provisions that he specifically wanted in his proposal. All right, curve one, 3 books to read on governance. You know, when people ask me books, my mind draws a blank. It's like, I'm a musician. I've played music in church for a long time. I've played church music for a long time. I know a lot of gospel songs. At least I'm supposed to know. And then someone would come and ask me, hey, what's that song by? And I'd be like, I just can't come. So I can't think of one. And to be honest, these days, I don't read much books. And most of my reading is online. All of the information is online. All of the information is right there. You could just, once you know where to look online, you would find troves and troves and troves of information that you could never finish reading in a million lifetimes. things. Should our president have the power to make executive orders? Our entire system would have to change for that to be. Now, I think if Tobago gets what it wants in terms of the more autonomy, where they possibly turn us into a more federated system, then an executive president might make sense. In a federal system, an executive president could make a lot more sense, where the power is already decentralized into the local federal states, or whatever you would call them, in Trinidad and Tobago. So the president does not have undue control over everyone. You are controlled by the governor of your region, or whoever is the leader of your region mostly, and the president has more overarching control. So you see, the idea of an executive president is that you need someone to have executive control for emergency things like wars, things that you don't want to have to vote on a million times and wait 5 years to get a decision. You need someone that could make the decision in the moment, and that's the importance of the executive president. I wouldn't want, though, that the amount of power our present government has over everyone's everyday life to be given to an individual person. So if we devolve power to the local government authorities, we have a more federated system, then in that case I think an executive president might make more sense, and I might like it in that case. In fact, I hate the fact that national politics it has to be so important. It should be at the local level. That's why I always tell the Tobagonians I envy what Tobago has, where in fact the majority of the things are at a local level. And what they get angry for is that they want more things at the local government level. All right. Any more questions or comments? If not, this may be where I call it a night. That's all I have for now. I hope you guys were educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer, your host of the Mindful Live, which you can catch on weeknights around that 9:30 p.m. time. The next live will be Monday. We aren't here on the weekends. You can catch us on Monday. This has been brought to you by Mindful Education, the educational institution that I run. We have learning pods available for the stages from preschool all the way up to Cape. Well, CXC, not Cape. We don't have any for Cape right now. So if you are interested, you can hit us up. We offer private tuition also for most Cape and CXC subjects. If you are interested, hit us up and get in touch. All right, people. It was nice. Enjoy your weekend. Thank God it's Friday. Cardell Drizzy, if I getting paid, I might. Peace. Latest, people.